The story of Vanuatu begins not with maps or flags but with the quiet lapping of waves on volcanic sand. It is a story carried on the ocean currents and whispered on the trade winds. Long before European ships dared to cross the vast Pacific, a remarkable people were already navigating its immensity. These were the Lapita people, skilled seafarers who possessed an intimate knowledge of the stars and the sea. They set out from the islands of Southeast Asia, their outrigger canoes laden with everything they needed to start a new life. Yams, taro, pigs, chickens. This was one of the greatest migrations in human history. These voyagers reached the archipelago we now call Vanuatu around 3,300 years ago. Evidence of their arrival lies buried beneath the soil, in distinctive patterned pottery. Archaeologists have unearthed these fragments. They establish small coastal communities, clearing patches of dense tropical forest to plant their gardens. A chain of over 80 islands teeming with unique flora and fauna. Their lives were intrinsically linked to the land and the sea. For thousands of years, the world of the Ni Vanuatu people was contained within their archipelago, their only visitors arriving by canoe from neighboring islands. This long period of relative isolation was shattered in the year 1606. A Portuguese explorer, Pedro Fernandes de Queiroz, sighted the northern islands. He was on a quest to find the great southern continent, Terra Australis Incognita. He landed on a large island he named La Australia del Espiritu Santo, the Australian land of the Holy Spirit. His stay was brief and fraught with misunderstanding and conflict before he sailed away. Over 160 years passed before another European sail appeared. In 1768, the French navigator Louis-Antoine de Bougainville sailed through the archipelago. He confirmed Espiritu Santo was not a continent but an island. The legendary captain James Cook would put the islands on the European map. In 1774, Cook charted the island chain from north to south. He spent over a month navigating treacherous waters. He made contact with island communities and documented his findings with scientific precision. Their arrival marked a profound and irreversible turning point. They brought new technologies and goods. They also brought diseases to which local populations had no immunity. Epidemics swept through communities, devastating numbers. Next came a new wave, sandalwood traders. The fragrant wood was highly prized in China. A ruthless trade began in the 1840s. Traders often exploited islanders, leading to violence and deep distrust. The sandalwood trade stripped forests and stained beaches with conflict. Close behind came missionaries, and the so-called blackbirders. The names given to this collection of islands tell a story, one from the outside looking in, and one from the inside looking out. It was Captain James Cook who bestowed the name that would stick for 2 centuries. As he sailed south through the archipelago in 1774, the dark, rugged, and misty outlines of the islands reminded him of the Hebrides, an archipelago off the western coast of Scotland. And so, he charted them as the New Hebrides. This name was born of a European memory, a label that superimposed a distant geography onto this unique Pacific world, ignoring the rich tapestry of local names that had existed for millennia. The name New Hebrides became the official colonial designation, a symbol of foreign discovery and possession. It was a name that appeared on all the maps, in all the administrative documents, and in the minds of the colonists who would soon arrive. For the people of the islands, however, this name meant very little. They identified themselves by their specific island, their village, or their language group. They were men from Tanna, women from Pentecost, or speakers of the Pamese language. The concept of a single, unified national identity under a foreign name was entirely alien to their way of life and their understanding of their place in the world. As the 20th century progressed, and a sense of shared experience under colonial rule began to grow, so too did the desire for a name that reflected a unified, independent identity. The colonial experience in the New Hebrides was unlike any other in the world. As British and French commercial interests grew in the late 19th century, particularly through settlement and the establishment of plantations, a rivalry developed. Neither nation wanted to cede control to the other, but neither wanted the expense of full annexation. The result was a bizarre political compromise established in 1906, the Anglo-French condominium. The islands would not be ruled by Britain or France, but by both simultaneously. This unique system of joint administration was intended to be a cooperative venture, but in practice, it created a state of organized chaos. This dual administration, wryly nicknamed the Pandemonium by those who lived under it, led to a bewildering duplication of services and laws. There were two sets of police forces, one British and one French, wearing different uniforms. There were two health services, two education systems, and two currencies, the Australian dollar and the new Hebridean franc. Even driving was a puzzle. The British drove on the left and the French on the right, leading to a local custom of simply driving down the middle of the road. This created not a unified state, but two parallel colonial societies existing side by side, governing the same people with different rules. For the Vanuatu people, the condominium was a source of constant confusion and frustration. They were caught in the middle of this bureaucratic labyrinth. A person could be arrested by the British police, but have to be tried in a French court, or vice versa. The system created divisions, often pitting Francophone communities and Anglophone communities against each other. Profoundly inefficient and neglectful, it slowed political and economic development and fueled the desire for independence. Long before and long after the arrival of Europeans, the true heart of Vanuatu has always been its custom. This Bislama word, which is actually derived from custom, encompasses the traditions, beliefs, social practices that have guided life in the islands for centuries. Custom is not a single, rigid set of rules. It's really a living, breathing mosaic that varies from island to island and even from village to village. It governs everything from land ownership, marriage rituals, farming practices, conflict resolution. It is the spiritual and cultural bedrock of Vanuatu society, a deep well of ancestral knowledge that provides a sense of identity and continuity in a rapidly changing world. One of the most astonishing aspects of this cultural richness is the sheer linguistic diversity. With a population of just over 300,000 people, Vanuatu is home to more than 130 distinct indigenous languages. This makes it the country with the highest density of languages per capita on Earth. This incredible diversity is a direct result of the island's geography, mountains, jungles, sea channels, that kept communities isolated for generations, allowing their languages to evolve independently. To bridge this linguistic divide, a pidgin English language called Bislama developed. Today, Bislama, English, French are official languages, and serve as the lingua franca that unites the nation. Traditional life is deeply communal and connected to the land. Most Vanuatu outside the main towns live in small villages, practicing subsistence agriculture. They cultivate lush gardens of yams, taro, cassava, sweet potato. The yam, in particular, holds great cultural significance, with its planting and harvesting accompanied by elaborate ceremonies and rituals. The chief safeguards land and harmony, while ceremony and ritual remain woven into daily life. The seeds of independence were sown in the fertile ground of discontent, with the condominium's chaotic rule and a growing awareness of a shared identity. A pivotal moment came during the Second World War, when the New Hebrides became a major Allied base, especially for American forces. Over 100,000 military personnel were stationed on Espiritu Santo, on Ifat. This influx brought immense change. Vanuatu worked on the bases, and saw the wealth and egalitarian attitudes of American soldiers, who often treated them with more respect than colonial administrators had. This American time opened eyes to a world beyond colonial hierarchy. After the war, that awareness fueled proto-nationalist movements. One key movement was Nagri Amel, led by Jimmy Stevens. Based on Espiritu Santo, Nagri Amel pushed for the return of alienated land and the preservation of custom. It shifted from cultural activism to direct political challenge against colonial authority. In the 1970s, the Vanuatu Party formed to demand unity and independence, led by Anglican priest Walter Leaney. It campaigned for immediate independence, endorsing Melanesian socialism. Socialist principles fused with traditional community values. As July 30, 1980 approached, secessionists threatened the new nation. Papua New Guinea sent troops. Melanesian solidarity preserved the nation. On Independence Day, Britain and France lowered their flags, and the Vanuatu flag was raised. In the years since independence, Vanuatu has charted its own course in the vast Pacific. Today, life for most Ni Vanuatu continues to be rooted in the village and the land. Around 80% of the population lives in rural areas, relying on subsistence agriculture, kava, copra, cocoa. This strong connection to the land provides a safety net and a sense of security that is distinct from the pressures of a purely cash-based economy. The rhythm of life is often dictated by the seasons, the community, and the obligations of custom, rather than the clock. The modern economy, centered in the capital, Port Vila, and the northern town of Luganville, presents a different picture. Tourism is the nation's most important industry, drawing visitors to its pristine coral reefs, active volcanoes, and unique cultural experiences. The finance sector also plays a significant role, as Vanuatu operates as an offshore financial center. However, the nation faces considerable challenges. Reliance on tourism brings vulnerability to global events. One of the most surprising facts about Vanuatu is its consistent ranking near the top of the Happy Planet Index. High life satisfaction, modest incomes, and a low carbon footprint define its balance. Happiness here flows from community bonds, a rich cultural life, and a deep relationship with nature. Hidden beneath the surface of this island paradise are other remarkable secrets. On the island of Tanna, the Yasur volcano is one of the world's most accessible active volcanoes, where visitors can stand on the crater rim and witness its fiery eruptions. Off Espiritu Santo lies the SS President Coolidge, a luxury liner turned troop ship that sank in 1942, now one of the world's great wreck dives. The movement for independence gained momentum in the 1960s and 1970s, led by a new generation of educated leaders. They sought a name that was indigenous, one that spoke of their own history and their connection to the land. The name they chose was Vanuatu. This powerful name was crafted from two words found in many of the local Austronesian languages. Vanua meaning land or home, and tu meaning to stand or to exist. Thus, Vanuatu can be beautifully translated as our land forever, the land that stands. The adoption of this name upon independence in 1980 was a deeply symbolic act. It was a rejection of the colonial past and the name imposed by Captain Cook. It was a declaration of sovereignty and a celebration of a new, unified national identity forged from a diversity of cultures. The change from New Hebrides to Vanuatu was not just a change on a map, it was the reclaiming of a story, a powerful statement that this land, which had always stood, would now stand on its own terms. Beneath Santo's waters, $1 Million Point, jeeps, cranes, supplies, became an artificial reef of history. Vanuatu is a land where history, culture, and nature are intertwined in the most extraordinary ways.